Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really delighted about today's guest, Dr. Schroeter, or she goes by Christiane, and I'm really happy to have her on. She's an entrepreneur, and she empowers entrepreneurs with bold strategies, petite practices, and big results. And I'm really happy to have her. Christiane, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share some cool insights here today and can't wait to see about this amazing show here today.
Yeah. And we'll talk about your book, How to Master Your Goals. It's on Amazon. And briefly introduce yourself, and we'll dive into the questions.
My name is Dr. Christiane Schroeter. I am a professor. I teach innovation, entrepreneurship, and marketing in California. And I'm really thrilled to live here. I have two daughters that are now teenagers. So I'm also an entrepreneur and I'm teaching my daughters really that they can start at a very young age and become solopreneurs and start their businesses. So I'm seeing college students on campus. I'm seeing my daughters at home starting a business. And then I'm also a business and wellness coach where I see everybody that left maybe their dreams on the side of the road and still really want to go for it, just don't know how to get started.
Mm,
And so I'm empowering people in finding strategies to making their business work and eventually maybe even being the business, the full source of their income.
yeah. Interesting. And yeah, I really love that. And we'll talk about the future of jobs and work and careers, whether people should go to college or start businesses, whether or not we'll talk about that. And but talk about what's really interesting is clients that come to you because you're a professor and you do a lot of different things, and people that come to your book. Who do you attract? Who's your audience? What are they running away from? What are they striving towards? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, actually, this is a great question that you said. What are they running away from? I think most of the time they don't even feel like they can run at all. They just feel stuck. I think that's the main common theme that I sense being stuck or being overwhelmed. And it could be overwhelmed by your current career, by your current lifestyle choices, but being stuck meaning that you don't know how to approach a big goal that you have and how I'm getting there. You know that you want to do this, but you just don't know how. And that's frequently what I sense. I also frequently feel that people lack confidence in certain career decisions, whether that's pitching, whether that's speaking, publishing, anything that goes along with putting yourself out there and increasing of visibility is something that is another common thread. So if I would put like a common label on why people seek me out, I would say it's probably they need some gentle nudges, to use an economic term, in getting started from being stuck.
Interesting. So we'll dive into the content of how to master your goals, and you have this idea of petite practice and small consistent steps creating big results. And most people think it's like they have to just throw out everything, start over, make big bold moves. Talk about your idea of the petite practice.
Oh, it's great that you compared that to throwing out everything that you have done. In reality, really, when you think about a big goal, it's you feel this goal is there and you can maybe even visualize it. It's you're standing at the river and you're looking on the other side of that river. And there's this very common saying that says the grass is always greener, right? So you look on the other side of this river and you see the goal is hanging out like right there. You just don't know how to get there. And now what I create with Petite Practice is a pathway to cross the river of all the different things that need to get done to get you to your goal. So I basically create little rocks along the way that you can use as stepping stones to go from one to the next. And believe it or not, but if you think about yourself crossing a river, sometimes you're stepping on a rock that's very solid, and sometimes you're stepping on a rock that's maybe something completely new. So when you earlier compared this to you throwing out everything that you have done, I always encourage people, let's start maybe with what is currently working and what can we maybe tweak. Because throwing out everything is actually another step of overwhelm. You could say, oh, I'm just going to build a bridge over the river. Yeah, cool. But where are we going to get the wood from? And I don't even know, like right now we are already at the side of this river. So the rock's already there. Why don't we just use them and see where it gets us? So that's how I frequently look at coaching. Let's just see what we got and what we can use. And if something feels like it's a little bit wobbly, maybe we go to the next step and that might be more solid. But throwing out everything that you got, especially if you want to start a business, is frequently also associated with a big financial burden, and that will make it even more stressful. So somebody that's already feeling stuck and stressed. So we want to take that away and just see, all right, so there's a lot of things you can actually do with very low cost. Let's just think about it this way.
Interesting. Yeah, and it reminds me of the Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and
Yep.
just the one thing that is talking about is I spot a lot of the audience and listeners and viewers, they're female entrepreneurs in various stages. And what are some of the most common challenges the female entrepreneurs face, and what is your advice to them?
Yeah, confidence is the number one issue. Feeling that things need to be perfect before you hit publish, or before you hit pitch, or before you actually get on a stage, that they need to be just absolutely perfect. Where in reality, I can honestly tell you, we associate much more with people that are not perfect. Because think about your own home where you feel comfortable, and you feel comfortable because it's like you, it has a personality. So how can we associate with somebody that's so perfect? It feels like they're just this shallow, superficial human being. We want to see some personality, and that will only really come out if you make things just a little imperfect, so to speak. And I think that nowadays with AI, we frequently look at things and we're like, is that actually real? So the more you can make us believe in you and who you are, the less we will think that you are just some artificial intelligence mock-up that's appearing on screen. So the female entrepreneurship main struggle is always confidence.
Interesting. The other segment of the podcast audience are the Gen Z millennial cohort, and a lot of them are still in school. Or and what's interesting is you're a professor at a university, and what is your advice to people in university, given what we're experiencing? And we've got artificial intelligence. Is a college degree going to be obsolete? Like Elon saying he doesn't hire on pedigree, he hires based on skill. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that for me, the main takeaway really is that you need to figure out what your degree actually means when you apply to a job. Don't just say, oh, I studied economics or engineering or business. But within that area, what is really the takeaway? It's like when you read a book, you don't just say, oh, I read this book. It's so what? Right? At the end of the day, did you actually understand what the book was all about? So when you study economics, what's the takeaway? What are you going to do with it? What do you feel in economics made you passionate to where you could see yourself in a career that would make you excited for the rest of your life? And of course, we sometimes think, oh, I would like to do that. And then you start it and you're like, actually, that was totally different from what I thought it would be. That's awesome, right? But you need to figure out within all the classes that I took, there were probably some that really sparked joy. And I would really encourage this generation to think about it this way, that you don't need to love everything, but you need to like something. And you need to figure out what that is. And I would strongly encourage, if you said, I really actually don't know what I want to do, I don't know what I like, start with the opposite. Figure out what you don't wanna do and what you don't like. And that sometimes then this thinking about, like, your table, what goes on the "I don't wanna do this" and what goes on the side of "I wanna do this," that actually really helps in figuring out things. Now, I talked about this with my college students the other day, and I said, "What do you feel you're really good at?" And then, like, one college student said, "Sitting on the couch." And I was like, "Okay, so you actually need to make money at the end of the day." But on the other hand, we can twist this. If you really like sitting, an office job might be ideal, and maybe it's even working from home, right? I don't know, it would be necessarily a couch, but you can use things in a positive way. Yeah.
Interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is what sort of skill sets, obviously it sounds like learning to think for yourself and how do you apply the things you've learned? So do you think what are your thoughts on just obviously you're a professor, what are your thoughts on university education given now we have Khan Academy, YouTube and artificial intelligence and people can get these
Mhm.
skills? Will they need to go into debt or can they get them faster and more economically easily?
I love this question because I think about myself and my growing inbox, all the emails that I have with like various PDF downloadable things or summits that I could listen to. And at the end of the day, am I doing this? Sometimes I don't want to say I don't do it at all. But if somebody teaches me something in person, I actually listen.
Mm,
If I actually pick up a book and I open the pages, I actually read. So will there ever be the point to where we don't have any in-person contact? I seriously doubt it.
mm,
It's the same discussion that we had, whatever, a decade ago when people said bookstores are going to go away, and guess what? They are not, right? Because it's still a medium that is important, and it's not only the learning, it's also the socialization. So in college, and I hear this sometimes even from my students, frequently they say, "I took this class and I don't even know I didn't learn anything." You did learn something. You probably met some people, right? Some people, and maybe some that you actually really enjoy hanging out with. You probably learned some skills or tools in this class, and you met a professor too. So, I mean, it's these are all things you can't replicate with some YouTube video because the person on the other side of the screen is probably never ever going to meet you, and nor will you actually meet these other people that are watching the YouTube videos.
mm.
And then there might be a skill that you can really only get in the classroom because it's maybe very applied. And that is something that while you listen to a YouTube video, you tune out that person. You're not fully focused because you're doing a million things at the same time. So I'm a firm believer that there is a place for everything, but that the in-person socialization is just as important and at any age in your life as the artificial intelligence or YouTube education. We need definitely to hang out with people to learn.
Yeah. And especially if you go to top tier universities, your
Mm.
peer and cohort groups, they're come from very wealthy, successful families, and it's like your network and your peer groups. That's a important selling point as well. The another question, because you mentioned that you do coaching, so I'm assuming that you coaching people that are further down in their career. And what do you say to people that they follow this standard traditional path and either they work for corporations like Blockbuster or they work for the government and like these skills just became obsolete. How do you get them back on their feet? What is your advice?
Oh, I think that it's adaptability. There are so many things that are constantly changing. And that's the beautiful thing about being human, right? We're always learning. Like a few years ago, you wouldn't have thought of listening to a book and as actually maybe even the author reading it to you. It's like story time was reserved for children. And
Mm,
now it's, oh my gosh, I get story time by the author. What a luxury that is. It's okay if there are certain skills that I may be changing or maybe even going away.
yeah.
Again, coming back to the college student, or we would maybe there are young entrepreneurs or mid-career entrepreneurs, you have to figure out what is it that is your superpower and that you're really passionate about, because frequently those kind
Yeah.
of Venn diagrams are in the back of your mind, but you need to be really bringing that to the foreground. What is it that you feel you can do that comes easily to you? And
Mhm.
what is it that you feel you're really excited and passionate about? Because especially if you work in sales, it's really obvious if you're passionate about something, and it's really obvious when you just memorize script. So you need to be a little bit on that side of, all right, so even though I like a lot of different things, And even though some of these things might go away, I need to figure out how can I keep myself relevant and train myself in the skills that I'm passionate about and maybe deepen that knowledge a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. A follow-up question I have for you is because earlier on we touched upon this idea of this dichotomy, go to
Mhm.
college or not. Once you're out of, assuming you do go to college and get your degree, how do you, for students struggling whether or not to get a job versus start a company or becoming an entrepreneur, what is your advice to those people struggling with that fork in the road?
Yeah, so it's a brilliant question. I think that college education has a place not just for the degree, but also for learning who you are, interacting with others. And I want to make something very clear. If you are in a college environment, you will never ever have that luxury of meeting that many people that have a lot in common with you: age, lifestyle choices, maybe even the major. You will never ever have that opportunity. So once you graduate from college, you're going to go into a workplace and everybody will be at very different lifestyle choices. They might have already worked at this company for 10 years and you're the newcomer. So you'll always be feeling at the beginning, especially a little bit like looking in from the outside. While in college, you all have that same experience and you're like a cohort that's moving through the same experience. So
Mm,
that is the number one really big suggestion. Like, even if you just go to community college or you take classes, maybe 2 classes per semester, the network that you build is something you cannot put a price tag on it. It's unbelievable how many people you meet in college. Some might be your besties for life, right? But you need to be, again, you need to be aware about this. This is also like one of the things about going to college. And
mm,
now if you're like, should I start a business? Should I not business? I think the best time is to start in college, to be honest with you.
mm,
There might be at my university, there's so much funding because I teach innovation entrepreneurship, right? There's so much funding from a few $1,000s for winning an elevator pitch competition to $10,000 to win an innovation quest where you will actually have to present something like a slide deck. And then we have some accelerator that I have some of my students in $15,000. So this all sums up and it's free money. You just have to apply for it. Otherwise, it's not free.
yeah.
And that I think, why not start in college? You're or enrolled anyway. Why not take the advantage of this? It's like you go to Costco, you pay for the membership, may as well just go to the sample booth. It's already there. You're already in Costco. May as well just see what's hanging out on the side. And that's how I look at this. It's like free right there. Just sample it. And so that's how I
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love your approach. Final question is, your Amazon number one book has inspired many. What's the core message and how can listeners apply it to their own lives? And I know you also have a podcast as well.
Yeah. So the book is called How to Master Your Goals. And if you think about that, it's your goals. The book really goes step by step through how can I start my business? And my business is my goal. How can I make money that will become from a small idea something that's actually thriving and leading to profit? And so we go through everything like building your own brand, building your own business plan. I use the business model canvas. And then, really, at the end, how can I build a network that helps me propel the business? And so I'm sharing my best secrets in the book. And that's probably why it is such a bestseller. But I also, and I love that you brought up the podcast, I keep the book really interactive. So each chapter has a little quiz portion in there. It has actually an ability for you to do a word search in there. So it's very applied because we learn in different ways. And then, of course, the book itself is like a big questionnaire to where you can actually use your pencil and you can go through it. It's a workbook. And I think that frequently when you pick up a business book, it is really just line by line filled with content. And here it is content that you create with your goals, which is why it's called How to Master Your Goals. And my latest book is called Discover Your Superpower, is really mirroring the podcast with my publishing because the podcast plays a big role in my book, and it's actually one of the top 1% ranked podcasts in the world. So I wanted to give that podcast a little bit more of a platform. So my latest book is showing some of the podcast experts, again, my network, in sharing what their superpowers are.
Yeah, excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation. And where can people find out more about you, connect with you, check out the book, and learn from you?
My website is called Dr. written out, drchristiane.com. Of course, you can check out my podcast. It is called Happy, Healthy Hustle. And then find me anywhere on social media at Dr. Christiane. And I would also, of course, connect with you via email. You can grab my free Discover Your Superpower quiz on my website, where you find out a little bit more about yourself. And then you get a personalized email that shares a little bit more about what areas you're really amazing at and what is your superpower.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on. And I really enjoyed this conversation and a lot of great insights.
Thank you so much for having me. And to the audience, keep up the great work.